Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the legal aspects of President Trump deploying U.S. Marines in response to immigration protests in Los Angeles. Also tonight, new rules raise standards for Arizona's assisted living facilities serving dementia patients. And a nonprofit helping the Valley's homeless opens a new medical respite center. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A battalion of 700 Marines is being mobilized to deploy to Los Angeles. That's according to Defense Department officials who say that the active duty troops are needed to guard federal property from immigration protesters. Those duties are currently being carried out by California's National Guard. Indeed, the Guard was called up by the president over the objections of the state's governor, which led to the state filing a lawsuit today against the president. The suit will ask a federal court to set aside the president's move to federalize and thus take control of the California National Guard in response to immigration protests in Los Angeles. Those protests were in response to an immigration enforcement raid. The mayor of Los Angeles today said that none of this needed to happen.
Why were there raids? You know, we had been told that he was going to go after violent criminals. It wasn't a drug den, it was a Home Depot. It was places where people are working. So what was the point of doing this? And then knowing that in a city like Los Angeles, and we had talked about this for a long time, that has a very sophisticated long-term immigrant rights organizations and institutions, that if these random raids were going to happen, then there was going to be the danger of a backlash. And you add on to that the National Guard, and it felt like fuel for a fire that was unnecessary.
We will have much more on the legal aspects of the president's actions in just a moment. Other headlines: President Trump's new travel ban took effect today. Citizens from a dozen countries, mostly from Africa and the Middle East, are now barred from traveling to the U.S. The president's order accused many of the countries on the list of exploiting the U.S. visa system and failing to cooperate on deportations. Note, the travel ban does not apply to those with visas who are already in the country. Other exceptions include green card holders, dual citizens, and athletes participating in major sporting events. Economic note: U.S. imports from China dropped more than 20% last month. That's the steepest drop since the start of the pandemic. The numbers reflect President Trump's initial 145% tariffs on goods from China and are not indicative of a 90-day pause on those tariffs that was quickly enacted. Still, ports on the West Coast saw significant declines in shipping last month, with activity in L.A., Long Beach, and Tacoma, Washington down between 18 and 26%. And musician Sly Stone has died. Stone was a charismatic and groundbreaking frontman for Sly and the Family Stone, which transformed pop music in the 60s and 70s with a spirited mix of rock, jazz, soul, and the early incarnations of funk, all by way of the first major act to include black and white men and women. Sly Stone's influence ranged from Prince to George Clinton to any number of rap and hip-hop artists. Sly Stone, dead at 82. As we mentioned, the Trump administration is mobilizing and expected to deploy U.S. Marines to the streets of Los Angeles in response to immigration protests. This follows the president's calling up with the California National Guard against the wishes of the state's governor, all of which raises all sorts of legal questions. And joining us now is Stephen Montoya, a partner at Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. Good to have you here. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I know the National Guard thing is fascinating from a constitutional aspect from long ago, and we were talking beforehand about this. But this business of calling up active duty troops, can the president call up federal troops on U.S. soil?
Yes, but he has to use the right law. And as of last night, he wasn't using the right law. He was using Title 10 of the United States Code, Section 12406, which only authorizes him to call out the National Guard. And moreover, once he does call out the National Guard, everything goes through the governors of the states, or in the case of the District of Columbia, through the commanding general of the National Guard of the District of Columbia. That didn't happen in this case. Calling out the Marines are not the National Guard. Moreover, his generals or somebody else is in charge of the National Guard, not the governor of California, that also violates the letter of this law. However, there's another law, a more famous law, or a more infamous law, depending upon your perspective, and that's the so-called Insurrection Acts. Under the Insurrection Acts, President Trump doesn't need the governor's permission, and in fact, federal authorities would be in charge of either the National Guard or some other armed forces, which would include the Marines.
Okay.
But he hasn't cited the Insurrection Act.
Yeah, I want to get back to the Marines real quickly here,
Sure.
because I'm old enough to remember when late night talk shows would talk about posse comitatus. Now the government was ready to send in troops to take over everyone's rights and just, you know, trample on everything and everyone.
Understood.
You know, Council for Foreign Relations and the Trilateral, they all kind of ran together. This was back in the day. This is the real thing right now. How does that law apply to the president putting active duty U.S. Marines in an American city?
Well, honestly, it really doesn't. The Posse Comitatus Law of 1878 is a fascinating law. As the year suggests, 1878, it was passed right after Reconstruction, when the South was successfully ridding itself of the Union Army that was making sure the laws, including the 13th and 14th Amendment, were fairly enforced. But part of the Compromise of 1877 actually required the federal troops to leave the South, and that's why that law was passed. But that law was true even before, the principle was true even before it was passed, that the United States military could not act as law enforcement officers. And that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary period. Remember, Ted, the American Revolution was initiated in part protesting a standing army, the standing army of King George that occupied the 13 colonies, right? Mm-hmm. And so the colonists were very distrustful of standing armies, and so were the founding fathers. And that's why, even though the Constitution itself authorizes calling up the militia in cases of insurrection, there were certain very, very stringent procedural safeguards required. First of all, only Congress could call up the militia, which would, and command of the militia would be transferred to the president. But before it was transferred to the president, either an associate justice of the Supreme Court or a federal district court judge had to certify that in fact it was an emergency. So all three branches of government had to participate in calling forth the militia under the first Militia Act, which later morphed into the Insurrection Act.
Okay, I'm not remembering, and I'm not seeing any reports of that happening. I'm seeing
it didn't happen. It didn't happen because that law actually, the founding generation were so suspicious of standing armies and a standing militia that the law automatically expired after the passage of 3 years. After General Washington, who was the President Washington, who actually presided over the first calling out of the militia, after he did his work in quashing the Whiskey Rebellion without firing a shot, he actually dismissed the militia early, and it was passed again in 1795. And the 1795 law, like the present law, didn't have those procedural safeguards to make sure that it stayed in the right lane.
Okay, if you're not in the right lane, and California's governor and attorney general both say that the president was not in the right lane in calling up the National Guard over the governor's objections, they filed a lawsuit. Do they have a case?
I think they do have a case. It's a difficult case, though, because even though, and it depends upon how the United States answers the case. Really, because the insurrection law as presently constituted allows calling up the armed forces of the United States rather than merely the National Guard, which is the successor to the militias. Mm-hmm. because the Insurrection Act allows that, really President Trump did what he could do, and there's a long tradition of that people have forgotten about that. President Eisenhower federalized the National Guard, and actually the Army flew in to Little Rock to make sure integration under Brown versus Board of Education was effectuated. It's happened over and over through in the United States history. Actually, in the late 1890s, remember Eugene Debs, the famous labor activist? They called out the Army to take care of one of the protests he led, and guess what? It was affirmed by the Supreme Court.
Okay, but in this case, does the president have to prove, the administration, the Defense Department have to prove, A, that there's an insurrection, B, that it's an emergency, C, that it is an invasion? Those are the words that the administration keeps using to justify these kinds of actions.
Well, all he has to do is, under the Insurrection Act, if he cites the Insurrection Act in defense of what he did, all he has to do is prove that unlawful obstructions make it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States. An unlawful obstruction is not an insurrection, it's not an invasion. Actually, it's ill-defined. That's one of the problems with this law.
It could be defined as keeping ICE agents from doing their job.
Yes, or attacking federal buildings or attacking federal property. Those are very serious felonies by anybody's estimation. Whether or not you need the United States Marines to act as the police force in that context is a completely different matter.
Wow. All right. Stephen Montoya, holy smokes, we could go on all day about this because it's fascinating. The historical aspects are fascinating, and we don't even know what's going to happen next as far as Los Angeles is concerned. And in other cities, the president's talking about getting National Guards from other states to come over to Los Angeles and help.
He is. I think what's important to remember is using the military to enforce domestic law is a stride in the direction of a police state. That's why the Founding Fathers were against it.
Stephen Montoya from Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor, partner there, friend here. Good to have you here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This is very exciting.
On Finding Your Roots, actors Nathan Lane
It makes me want to have a party.
and Leslie Odom Jr.
It is a real reimagining of self.
Dramatic stories from Ireland
They were kicking them out.
I didn't know any of this.
and the startling discovery
That is your grandpappy.
Wow.
The fact that you've gone back this far is overwhelming.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
On American Experience.
It looked normal, but it wasn't normal.
This was an idealized sort of Nazi town, and they thought the Nazism was entirely consistent with American ideals.
They want their ideas to become mainstream. They're after power. They're after influence within the very fabric of the United States.
Nazitown, USA on American Experience.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
New rules will be going into place next month, rules that will raise standards of care at assisted living facilities in Arizona. The regulations are designed to protect patients with dementia. And to learn more, we welcome Caitlin McGlade. She's a data reporter at the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And this is basically happening because of your reporting there at AZ Central. Great job there. Let's talk about why these rules were needed and what now these rules will accomplish. Hopefully.
There is a widespread issue in the assisted living industry that memory care is a bit of a marketing term. So a facility can say, we offer memory care which is essentially enhanced care for people with dementia, and they can charge a lot more money if they say they offer memory care. But there's no standards that define what memory care is, and depending on where you go, you're going to get very different results.
So basically, and it sounds like these new rules, you're talking mandating increased training for caregivers, specifically those for dementia care? Mm-hmm. What does that mean, increased training? Was there not enough training before? Was there any training before?
There was very little training when it came to actually working with people with dementia, even though a lot of people who live in assisted living have dementia. The dementia-specific training was pretty minimal for caregivers. So what you end up having is employees who don't really know how to manage really difficult behaviors, or facilities that well, like one caregiver actually speaking in favor of reform said that a lot of what happens is that staff, if they're not trained, might misinterpret something a dementia patient does and then punish them for it, take away their food, or create situations that cause the resident to be very stressed out and then hurt themselves or hurt others. So there wasn't a lot of training, but now there will be. The law did say that dementia, that folks working with dementia patients will have to have at least 8 hours before they start working as a caregiver of dementia-specific training, and then after that, another 4 hours every year. Renewed.
Okay. Also establishing stricter enforcement measures for when things go awry. Obviously, enforcement measures suggest that there are rules in place. Are the rules in place? Are the enforcement measures stricter?
So that was a big problem that we found in our investigative series that ran in 2023, was that facilities would make all kinds of egregious mistakes, like messing up somebody's medicine and then that person ending up killing their roommate. That particular situation that I just cited, the facility got fined $500.
Yeah.
So there was just very little teeth to the law when state surveyors found that facilities messed up. And so what the new law does is that it increases the fines that facilities will have to pay, and also sets it so that it's like based off of the number of residents that are affected every single day. So the actual amount of money that facilities will have to pay will be a lot more than what they were previously paying, which they were basically baking into the cost. And so that's the thing that they're not going to be enforcing right away.
Not right away, but eventually. Well, it sounds like, again, great work on this, and it sounds like great work at getting what we hope are better results for dementia care at assisted living facilities. Caitlin McGlade, Arizona Republic, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, California sues the Trump administration for deploying the National Guard after anti-ICE protests become violent. That's at 6 on Arizona PBS.
Circle the City is a nonprofit organization that offers hope and healing to those experiencing homelessness. Their efforts are now expanding into the East Valley with a new respite care center in Mesa. Kim Desprez is the CEO of Circle the City. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Give me a better definition of Circle the City.
So Circle the City is a nonprofit organization. We provide health care to people facing homelessness across Maricopa County.
Okay, and this is a respite center, a new medical respite center for East Mesa. What is a medical respite center?
So we already have 2 existing respite centers. I describe them more like a mini hospital. The ones we have currently are 50 beds each, and the one that we're going to be building in Mesa will have 85 beds. And it's for people who are facing homelessness, who need medical treatment after surgery, trauma, chronic condition, they can go there to heal and recover.
So these folks aren't sick enough for the hospital, but they're honestly they're too sick to be on the streets.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
How do you find these folks?
Well, we have referrals from all over the place, from hospitals, nursing homes, doctors' offices. We also have internal referrals. We have a lot of internal sites. We have our mobile outreach unit. We have our street medicine and our clinics. So we'll get referrals also internally.
Okay, and you mentioned the Medical Respite Center here. It's a state-of-the-art facility. As you mentioned, 84 beds, nearly doubles, and other things like 3 freshly prepared meals a day.
Yes, so patients will have a place to lay their head at night, safe and sound. They'll have meals. We have a case manager who works with all of the social determinants of health. Our behavioral health consultant will see the patient. We also we take care of people who have substance use disorders, and of course, most importantly, their medical issues.
And medical issues includes transfer to appointments, transportation, I would imagine, to appointments, correct?
Yes. Yep, we'll take them to their specialty appointments. They'll see our provider in the clinic that day. At our facility, we have providers 7 days a week, and we have nurses 24/7.
I was going to say the nurses are 24/7, daily medical care, all of this. At what point do you see someone who's been cared for, they had a place to rest and recover, they've recovered to a certain degree. How do you say goodbye?
That's very difficult. The average length of stay is about 45 days, and during that time, we try very hard to find them a place to go when they leave our facility. We have about 78 to 80% of patients who leave our facility are placed someplace other than the street or shelter.
Yeah, but they have to have a place to go. I mean, if they don't have a place to go, what happens?
So the longer we hold on to patients, the fewer beds there are for the really sick patients.
Yes.
So it's a very fine balance, can be difficult decisions.
Yep.
But we'll try very hard to get them to a safe place.
And these are medical respite centers, a third now. This is East Mesa, but you still have mobile units, do you not?
We do. We have 5 mobile medical units that go all over Maricopa County. We have 3 street medicine teams, which is like backpack medicine. And then we have 2 outpatient clinics.
And is there a way to know that these respite centers and these mobile clinics and these things, is there a way to know they're making a difference? Are there metrics involved here? How do you know?
It's a great question. We track many things, including quality of care metrics. We track length of stay at the respite centers. We track all the things like have someone gotten their mammogram, cervical cancer screening, colonoscopies. We do everything we can, as much as we can, for preventative care.
Wow, that's great. And again, I think that Circle, now is this part, do you know about this PBS caregiving special? I think Circle, that you guys were in this, were you not?
We were.
Yeah.
We were. We have 2 shorts that were filmed, one regarding our respite center and one for our street medicine teams, and they were fabulous.
And Bradley Cooper, I think, is behind all this thing? Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to be able to see you guys on that.
Yes, I think we're going to be on that.
Yes, that's coming up, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I should know this. I work at PBS. I should be aware of this. This medical respite center is in the East Valley. This makes 3, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Are there plans for more?
We'll see. We'll see. Let's see how things go. We're watching Medicaid very closely, and anything that might change in regard to reimbursement. And
I was going to say, with this Medicaid issue, and we've talked so much about it on the show, how does it affect what you do?
We have probably 80% of our patients that have Medicaid, and so it would impact us quite a bit if Medicaid was changed in any way. So we belong to a couple alliances in the community, and we're really working hard to send letters and make calls so it doesn't impact our patients.
And for folks that want to learn more about Circle the City, where do they go?
www.circlethecity.org.
All right, well, that's pretty easy. Kim Day-Prey, Circle the City CEO. Good to have you here. Congratulations on the new Medical Respite Center.
Thank
It sounds
you very
like
much.
great work.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.